Hey, and good evening, and welcome to Just What He Said, the Huber Heights TJ Chumps location for tonight's Katrina Merriweather show. We're talking Wright State University women's basketball, and the Raiders have been playing extremely well. Right now, you got 3 wins against 1 loss in league play, 12-4 overall. And you made the sweep this weekend up in the Motor City, beat Oakland, and also beat Detroit Mercy on the road. Talk about those games a little bit, Coach.
Well, it was obviously pretty exciting. Oakland, like I've said in the beginning, is a very, very talented team. They have a kid who transferred from University of Illinois, one from DePaul University. So they're not missing any talent whatsoever. So we came out really ready to play defensively, and that had a lot to do with our ability to jump out early and maintain that lead. And same way with Detroit. I have to be honest and tell you that's about as nervous as I've ever been to coach a game.
Why is that?
They were 0-14. Like, they're going to get somebody.
Okay.
You know, you always worry about the preparedness of your kids, their mentality, their mindset going into that type of game. But we jumped out, I believe, 14, maybe even 18-1. So they were ready to go.
That had to relieve your anxiety at that point because, again, not only that they were 0-14, but the fact that you came off a big win in the first game against Oakland, and you don't have a whole lot of time to prepare for this game.
No, for sure. And again, people won't believe it. It's just like I told you how good IUPUI was, even though they got picked 6 and they're sitting 4-0. It's the same thing about Detroit. A lot of those games that they played, if they had played as well against Kent State as they did against Michigan, they would have beat Kent State. Like, they played their better games against, like, the Big Ten opponents, and then they fall short against the MAC ones. So they played a very tough schedule. And I think sometimes, just teams don't click, but their talent, again, is not the problem. They have first team all conference, Brian Cohen. They've got shooters. They just have a little problem at the point guard position.
Mm-hmm. Well, the good thing is your team came away with a win. Now, we do have some highlights, I believe, from that first win over the weekend against the Golden Grizzlies of Oakland University. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get to those right now and go ahead and describe what we're seeing here. You like that arena there? They call it the Blacktop at the O Arena. It's a different look, isn't it?
I am happy ours doesn't look that way.
Well, yeah, you see the light shining off. I guess it's just supposed to be for a home court advantage, but your team, why would they leave her that wide open?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. But I will say she hasn't made a lot of threes here lately, so people probably were taking advantage of and playing 50-50, hoping she'd miss some. But she's a good shooter, so we're going to let her shoot them.
It's always tough to win on the road. What did you do, or did you do anything, or just had some senior leadership or somebody on the team, get your team mentally prepared for these games away from home?
I've always been different about that. I think that playing on the road is a lot easier because you get your kids in a routine and in a hotel, and you kind of are able to shut them down and quarantine them a little bit. When they're here, you don't know what they're doing, and not that they're doing anything bad, but they're probably moving around, going to the mall, going to the movies, hanging out with their friends, their family who are coming to the game, probably stop by. I think it's just a lot more distractions at home than it is on the road.
Well, it doesn't there's no mistake there because your team this year so far has won 5 out of 7 away from home. So that pretty much underlines the fact that you talk about the team's pretty comfortable away from their home court.
Yeah, and again, it's nothing like playing at home, in front of your fans and everything. That definitely is better, but I don't think that we put any emphasis on being on the road any. It's just different.
It's a little bit different. Well, talk about the league just a little bit. You mentioned before we went on the air, you talked it last week about how well this league is doing compared to others. NCAA Division I. Tell everybody where the Horizon League women's basketball league stands as far as RPI is concerned.
Well, currently we are the 9th ranked team in the country. Ranked conference in the country.
Right.
So, again, we were talking about it from the very beginning. This is a very, very talented conference this year, and it's as talented as I've ever seen it. And Keith, who's been around a lot longer than me, says the same thing. And he's the one who keeps track of all that stuff. He's a number cruncher. So he brings a lot of that information back to me. And it's just one of those situations where you do have Northern Kentucky, who's really young, that can upset a Green Bay because they're going to play inconsistent because they're young, but they're very talented and young. So, they hit 10 threes in that game. So they're capable of scoring. And you're talking about what people thought may have been our last place team in our conference. I don't know. We knew it. We knew it coming in because you pay attention in recruiting to who people are signing, and then how well that they've done. And IUPUI has done really well before now. So, of course, they were going to continue to do well. And I don't think there was much of a jump. And I don't think people knew the Summit League was really talented with South Dakota State. So they've been playing high caliber competition, over the years. This isn't new.
Yeah, I think a lot of the fans on the Horizon League, and especially with Wright State with women's basketball, are saying, well, IUPUI came to the conference. Well, they've already made a statement. Their women's soccer team won the league, and now currently they're undefeated and leading in the women's standings in basketball. So apparently they have a good program there.
And there's no question about that. Austin Parkinson has done a really, really good job there. And it wasn't too long ago, being from Indianapolis, that, again, IUPUI was a Division II school. So for someone to come in there and be able to recruit the type of players that he has, and they play very, very hard, and they're good defensively. They apply a lot of pressure. They press. Again, they play up-tempo, so it should be a pretty fun game when we actually
just
play.
like with Northern Kentucky, they just have to be ecstatic, the fact that they're in the Horizon League, because geographically, you really like the way this league is set up. And they're probably excited to be here, and they want to be able to make a statement. Not only that, now the recruiting wars, it's difficult as it is, and now you have a team in Indianapolis once again, and that's one of the places that you do really well as far as recruiting is concerned.
No question. And as soon as I got the job, he's got a freshman on his team named Macy Williams.
Yeah.
That as soon
She's
as I got the job, I called her right away.
Yeah.
And again, you all will see that kid's really, really good. And so he kind of squeezed her a little bit when we got involved and said, hey, we've been recruiting you this whole time. Are you coming or not? And of course, she said, yeah. So didn't get enough time really in on her the way they would have liked to. And she still could have ended up at IUPUI because he, again, does a really good job. But he knows what he's doing, and it's going to be an interesting year.
I was going to say, there's a little friendly competition going on, right?
There's no doubt about that. Again, he's an Indiana guy. He went to Purdue. I've known him for a long time. And, yeah, we do. We appreciate the same amount of talent and type of player, I think, and athleticism and the ability to dribble, drive, and that sort of thing. So we will run into each other a lot.
Well, as head coaches throughout the league, you like that, because what you're doing is you're making the league much better. I mean, I can think over 20 years ago, the Horizon League women's basketball, with the exception, Green Bay, it was way down, but it has come so far. And like you say, right now, the 9th-ranked conference in NCAA Division I, that's saying something.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and we are really excited about it. Like the coaches, we all have a really good relationship. So we text about it, talk about it when we see each other. Like, man, can you believe, what's happening to this conference this year? And again, you still have a team that hasn't won a game yet that's very, very capable. That the minute that they get clicking on all cylinders, they have enough talent to win. Again, there's just intangibles.
Well, when you get into league play also, and still it's way early, because you get through the first 9 games, then you got 9 more, and every team knows every team really well. And pretty much that gets down to, as far as preparation is concerned, it's more of a mental preparation, and also physically how well your team has stood up through the first half of the league schedule.
And you mentioned it earlier, too, about being able to prepare when you play 2 games in 3 days. And again, it takes a little bit of strategy to get that figured out. How do you sneak in that second game stuff, without really telling the kids a whole lot about what's going on, and because you want them to be focused on the next game and the first opponent out of the 2. So it does it. We pretty much just take the combination of things that are similar about both teams and work on those more. But you're right, it's not a lot of turnaround.
And the tools that coaches have now, even over the last 10 to 20 years, I mean, you have so much information available to you. You have the analytics. You talk about your assistant coach, Keith Freeman, crunching the numbers, but also with the video out there. I think if any team is doing anything, their opponents know exactly what they've done in the past. So I'm sure you have to be creative at times.
There's no doubt about that. And I will say, as much as our coaching staff does it, because I rely on them very heavily for scouting, where I may watch a game and a half, 2 games, they're going to watch every game that team has played to some degree. So I rely on them a lot to gather the data from it. And, of course, what we talked about, the synergy gives you all the statistics and things. But still, you have to focus on you, too. you can't get so consumed with what everybody else is doing. You have to make sure you're working on your team and getting better at what you do every day, and that's really important.
Well, your team now 3-1 as we mentioned, and 12-4 overall. The only blemish on the league mark is that game at Green Bay, which I know you think back to it as coaches, players probably forgotten about it. But it's like, I just like let one slip away. But you can't keep thinking about that. You just have to keep going on. And to your credit, you were able to sweep that weekend series on the road. As far as your team is concerned, the things that they need to work on, where are they at right now?
Well, one thing that we're going to do is continue to get better individually and then together as a team. So we're going to have individual workouts. They have a couple of days off this week, and they're going to get with their coach, their position coach, and they're going to do some workouts with them, 45 minutes or so, because we just have areas where we can improve. Again, Chelsea's going to have to continue to make that 15-foot jump shot, because people are going to stand there between her and the basket and not let her lay it in. And she's done a really good job of making threes this year. Same with Mackenzie Taylor. She's going to have to get to the rim some. She's not going to be able to settle for threes. We're working on that with Bree Lloyd now. So we just have to continue to get better. Again, we're not satisfied with playing our best basketball in January.
You can't be satisfied, and even as individuals, as players, they have to do different things, because we talked about it just a moment ago. That's because teams know exactly what you do. They know you like to dribble to the right. They know you like to take it to the left, pull-up jump shot. What are some of the things that as coaches you're going to be able to tell your players, hey, if you can do this, this is going to make you a better player?
Well, defensively is always something that we talk about. Because really, with us switching 1 through 5, those people who watch us are like, I can't believe they do that. They put Lexi Smith on the point guard. But if you watch her, she does a pretty good job of keeping space and keeping her hand on top of the ball and staying between them and the basket. But that's constant work. Constant work. So defensively, we practiced today, 2.5 hours and really got after it, because there's just things that we have to be better at. Because this closeout situation, if you can't guard the ball, it messes up everything. It forces you into all sorts of rotations you don't really want to be in. And most importantly, it allows the other team to offensive rebound. And wow, did we give up a bunch of them. It's a pretty big deal. So rebounding defense is always going to be our staple. And then we get shots up too.
Hold that thought, Coach Merriweather, because we're going to be back. All right, we got to take our first break from TJ Chumps here in Huber Heights. It's the Katrina Merriweather Show. We're talking Wright State University women's basketball.
Hi, I'm Bob Grody, class of 1976 and former Raiders player and coach. Did you know that once you're a Wright State grad, you're automatically a member of the Alumni Association? As a member, tap into the Wright State Network, attend a local alumni event, and earn discounts and special offers. Log on to wrightstatealumni.com and make the most of your membership. Thank you, and go Raiders.
Hey, and welcome back to TJ Chumps here in Huber Heights. We will not be on with the show next week. The teams will be playing, so we'll be back with you the week after that out in Fairborn. And if you want to keep up to date on all the coaches' shows, both Coach Merriweather and Coach Nagy shows throughout the rest of the season, just go to WSURaiders.com and check it out. We got all the information for you right there. And we thank everybody for coming out again here tonight. I know it's the new year. We're into the league season right now, and a lot of momentum going for this women's basketball team, Coach Merriweather. And I know we talked about before we went to that break, how teams are defending your team, because you have, by far one of the best players in the Horizon League, the preseason pick for Player of the Year in Chelsea Welch. We talk about her just about every week, and every team talks about her every week. Other schools may not know who she is, but everybody in the Horizon League knows who she is. How are teams guarding her this year? What have you seen? Are there any differences, and does that change the strategy of how you attack your opponents?
Well, those people in the non-conference didn't know who she was by the time we left the gym, though they did. And that's one of the reasons why I think our conference focuses on her so much. She's just such a capable scorer, and you don't know if she's going to go 9 for 14 or 9 for 22, because a lot of the time people are bringing over their 5-player. And it does make it tougher. Her at 5'10", scoring over another point guard is fairly easy. When you bring over a 6'2", 6'3", 5-player to come in and double her or alter her shot, it throws her off a little bit sometimes. And where our benefit is in that, where we tell her just get it on the rim. is we got Lexi Smith, who's one of the best offensive rebounders in the country, that then has a chance to go get it and lay it in. So I do think they focus on her. We haven't had anyone, which I'm kind of surprised, not box and one us, where they try to keep it out of her hands. But it's really tough to do that with the point guard, and it's tough to do that with a kid that you move and play in 3 different positions.
Are opponents defending Chelsea like Kim Demings in the past when she was here?
Yeah, her
Or are
and
they
Kim,
just a different type of game?
yeah, it's different. Kim is one of those players I always say plays in the air because she has that pull-up jump shot and is super, super athletic and plays that way. I tease Chelsea a lot and tell her she plays like a cross-country runner. You can't hardly tell how athletic she is until you watch her get a steal and somebody gets close to her, and then she changes gears, and you're like, whoa. So I don't know. I think that we just want her to not feel any different. You know, just we want to play the way that we play regardless of how anyone is defending her or us.
Well, it's interesting what you just said earlier. You said because you have an outstanding offensive rebounder, you're basically telling Chelsea to take shots. And I'm sure she wants to get everybody involved, but maybe people don't understand, well, maybe she's taking too many shots, but there's a reason for that.
It is. And everybody knows that we have this play called triple where literally there's one person in the ball side corner and 3 people on the opposite side of the floor, and her job is to get it to the rim. And if she thinks that she can do that, I mean, she shoots 47% from the field, which again for a guard that takes a lot of threes, pretty good. And so we're going to take our chances with her trying to lay it in first, and then if we don't have that, she back dribbles, and then the actions start from there. But she's always our first option. I mean, why wouldn't she be?
All right, defensive side of the ball. Something you said your team was work in progress early in the season. And judging by your expression right now, it looks like it still is a work in progress.
It is a work in progress, but it is better. And
Okay.
if you watch the way that we started the game against Oakland and Detroit, you'll see a group of 5 that's really, really locked in, and they know what our rules are, what our principles are. And every time that you sub and you change the dynamic of that certain 5, there's there's some room for error there, I think. But they play and they try really, really hard. And that's all that we really ask them for so that they can make up for the mistakes they make.
What about the opponents themselves? Has anybody really changed? The teams you faced already so far to the first 4 games, really any changes by what they've done in the past in regards to personnel and how they attack you?
I don't think so. And again, it's part of the reason why our switching 1 through 5 really works. But I will say against Detroit, when they did get Lexi on them, that point guard, they did make a concerted effort to try to drive down that lane line a little bit. So again, that's some stuff that we'll work on. And we mix it up then, like we will then trap the ball screen, or we may stay, we call it plug-in. Where you don't have to switch and put Lexi on that point guard initially. So we do mix it up throughout the course of the game, but really we just play the way we play.
You know, you mentioned earlier before we went to the break, too, about individual workouts. You know, with some of your players and your coaches, you'll be doing that this week. It's always good, like maybe a little refresher course and work on some things that can make them become a better player. Let's talk about some of the players this year. Who do you think has probably made the biggest jump from a year ago in terms of, getting their game to a higher level?
Mackenzie Taylor.
Okay.
I do. I feel like this kid came in as a freshman and was completely one-dimensional and couldn't guard her shadow. And then a year ago, she started putting it on the floor a little bit, and now she has so much confidence in her offensive ability to score that I now run plays to her, because a lot of the time the other team puts their worst defender on her. So we just run an ISO play to her. She usually can go lay it in. And then defensively, like, she takes charges now. She gets on the help line. She anticipates. Sometimes when they post feed, she steals it. Those are not things that we saw from her consistently in the last 2 years, and she's just hands and shoulders above where she was a year ago.
It's interesting. You bring up a great point, because does every player have this in them, and what does it take to finally it click? Is it just because they hear it from different individuals? All right, this is what you need to do, from assistants, even from yourself. Are they getting, consistent input onto how to make themselves better? Why is that? Because these players are very talented in high school, and when they come to this level, it's a little different. For some, it's a little more difficult to adjust to it.
For me, it's just human nature. I don't know that we change things that we don't believe need to be changed. And when kids come to college, they've been very successful doing things one way. And it's however their high school coach taught them or their AAU coach taught them. And then you just have to convince them that they can be just as successful doing it the way that it's done here. And so I think that that's just a process. There's a reason why freshmen don't normally play a lot. And if they do, you have to live with a lot of their mistakes because none of what you're teaching is a habit yet. And so I think it just takes repetition and it takes time.
Yeah, sometimes you develop, those bad habits, even though the player's mind, they may think it's not, but it doesn't fit into the dynamics in which you're trying to get out there as far as your team is concerned.
Exactly. And a lot of the time in high school, they hardly play man-to-man. A lot of the time they just play zone. So where our philosophy is that you keep a hand in the passing lane, and we always say keep your butt to the ball to help them know what their stance should be. A lot of them, when you play zone, your chest is facing half court. That is the exact opposite of what we teach. And so they don't, again, do it intentionally. So you find them, if you watch our freshmen, they will change their stance in the middle of a possession. Like it just hits them, I'm standing the wrong way. And again, I think it just takes reps and time.
Well, you hear all these horror stories about AAU basketball, and I know you've worked with summer leagues and you've seen a lot of this, and, maybe you can shed some light on it, but you hear like all they do, I've heard this before, they just roll the ball out and let them play. Is that true? Do they teach defense? Do they teach ball handling? Do they teach shooting? Or do they just go out and play?
I think everybody has their philosophy. An AAU program, depending on how big it is, how many teams it has, sometimes could be ran very similar to a college team. And then there's some that just have a group of kids that want to play basketball. So it just kind of depends where they play sometimes. But my dad, for example, we never worked on an ounce of defense. That wasn't the purpose of AAU to him. It was to better your offensive skills so that when you went back to your high school team, you could score points and win championships. And that was just his perspective on it. So, no, we didn't emphasize a lot of defense then either. But I don't know. I wouldn't send my kid to an AAU program to get better defensively. It's kind of just a different type and different brand of basketball, in my opinion. The problem for me are high school coaches, the ones that get to spend 2 hours a day with them every day for 7 months out the year. Everybody wants to blame it on AAU that you practice with for 2 months, probably 2 or 3 times a week. And I don't think that's accurate.
Cora, I don't follow the high school scene that much, but is there a lot of turnover in high school girls basketball?
Not where we recruit a lot. Again, in Indiana, there's coaches that have been in those schools for 10, 15, 20 years. But sometimes, again, it just kind of depends on where you're recruiting from. And I think in inner city areas, regardless of the state, I think there's a lot of turnover. I think that there's people who coach just for the stipend that don't even know what they're talking about. And there's just such a variety of coaches that coach for different reasons. It's hard to, in my mind, put them in one category or another.
As far as recruiting is concerned, for yourself and for your assistant coaches, when you go out and you review a potential recruit, are those some of the things that you take into consideration? What high school they play for, and if you've seen them in the summer and what they can do?
Undoubtedly. There's a program group called EYBL that's connected to Nike, and it's supposed to be the best 17, 18 teams in the country. And sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. But I will say they play a very high level of competition. So Tyler Frierson, who played for one of those programs out of California, didn't get off the bench and then goes in high school and literally averages 25 and 18. So when you put those two things together, it kind of keeps it in perspective. Like, okay, she's a really good high school player, so there's going to be some work that she needs because on this very high-level platform, she doesn't really get in the game very much. So to me, that just makes sense. A kid that plays in EYBL that's over 6'1" is going to go to a BCS school, even if it's the bottom of that BCS conference, just because they're tall and they can run and catch the ball. It's just kind of how it works. And again, we don't get worked up about it.
I was going to say, it must be quite a challenge. You have to really do your homework on these players.
And again, that to me, that makes me more comfortable anyway. I like to know who it is that we're recruiting and who is on our team. I don't really like surprises about that kind of stuff. So I like the work that goes into recruiting. I think that it benefits you in the long run to know exactly who you're dealing with.
All right, that's very, very interesting, Coach. We got one more break to take, and we'll be back with more from TJ Chumps here at Huber Heights. And this is the Katrina Merriweather Show, talking about Wright State University women's basketball.
What does it mean to be a pioneer, reaching your full potential? It means being bold. No, bigger than bold, monumental. Where would we be if we ceased at the first "you can't do that"? How would we advance if we stopped in our tracks every time we heard "hey you, move back"? We develop thick skin when opposition wishes we'd stay soft. Against resistance, our persistence will pay off. At Wright State, our goal remains central. We are the pioneers of potential.
And we got some Raider fans in attendance here. Nice turnout here tonight at TJ Chumps in Huber Heights. We appreciate it. Stay tuned. Coming up next, we have the men's program with Scott Nagy. He's here, and Jim Brown will be joining me talking about men's basketball at Wright State University. A lot to talk about this next hour. Coach, the time has flown by once again. I know we can touch on some more things in regard to recruiting. I know it's something you like to talk about, but we got a few minutes left, and each team in the league's had an opportunity to check out the new Little Caesars Arena, is where the tournament's going to be played this year in Detroit. It's a very, very nice place to play. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
It's beautiful, and I think that when our kids walk in that arena, they're going to feel like we're playing big-time basketball, and that it's a wonderful conference tournament that, again, just a few years ago, it was the top seed was hosting, and it didn't really feel like a conference tournament, and they are not going to get that feel now. I mean, it's where the Detroit Pistons play. So it's an awesome opportunity. I think they're going to enjoy it.
As I mentioned, you had a chance to go in. Of course, the Detroit Red Wings share that building, with the Pistons, and fortunately, both are, they have winter schedules, and it's worked out March 2nd through the 6th that it's not going to be any conflicts with the Horizon League tournament, which is great, But when you walked in there and you saw a game, did you see a game here recently and what it was like in there? What was the feeling? How did your players? What were their reaction?
Well, they didn't get a chance to see it.
Okay, just the coaches?
Just the coaches
Okay.
did. And they actually let us come to that the Red Wings game, which was my first professional hockey game. So the environment in general was pretty awesome. But again, I think that our kids, just knowing that it's a place where the NBA team plays, will make them feel really special in the locker rooms. Like, they just did such an amazing job putting that arena together. I've never seen anything like it.
All right, real quick, your upcoming opponent now.
Yeah, Northern Kentucky, again, everybody's they'll win some more games, but the one they're going to be known for sure is up in Green Bay. And again, they're a very capable team that's very young, that's going to be inconsistent, but when they go, they can go. And again, they play really hard. So we're just going to have to be locked in defensively like we have been in the last few games. And then we're going to have to obviously create some offense for ourselves too, hopefully off of our defense.
The Norse, of course, 2-2. The Raiders are at 3-1, but you already talked about how they brought down Green Bay and that shooting threes.
Right. Again, when you watch that game, you'll be able to see why they beat Green Bay. The amount of shots that they take, sometimes out of 60 shots, 25 of them are threes. You live by the three, die by the three. And that day against Green Bay, they live by it. And then against Oakland, they died by it. But I do know that they're super scrappy, and they're not a team that's going to give up. Coach Whitaker does a great job and has done a great job dealing with the youth. They've got 1 senior and 11 freshmen and sophomores.
All right, Coach Merriweather, best of luck. Thanks again. We always appreciate it. Look forward to it the next time we meet.
Thank
All right,
you.
stay with us. Coming up next, the Scott Nagy Show here from TJ Chumps in Huber Heights. This is Wright State University basketball.